Now, one of the requests was to do some more videos using supermarket flowers. Last week, or maybe the week before, I did a design using a supermarket bunch of flowers from Tesco. And if you remember, it had this gorgeous, almost tangerine coloured gerbera, several of the blooms, a rose and some Hypericum. And I'm going to show you how you can do a design with the same flowers but in a different style. And I'm going to add to it just a small bunch of supermarket Gypsophila. This time I'm using a low down container. This is a metal base. It's actually from Wilkinson's. I've had it a while, so I'm not quite sure if you can still buy them. But if you don't have anything like this, you could use a lasagna dish or a pie dish, something that's small, so we're only about 2 inches in depth. And I filled it with some offcuts of floral foam. So again, if you haven't got a huge piece of floral foam and you've got small bits hanging around that you haven't used before, it's a great opportunity to use them in this flat container. And what I'm going to do is a design that would sit quite comfortably on a console table or the centre of a coffee table. It's going to be quite low down, not too large, something that would be ideal for the home. It's a design that is low and compact, and the flowers are grouped and very close together. And it would work really well with the selection of flowers that I had in this supermarket bunch. Often we arrange flowers in 3s or 5s or 7s because it is deemed more pleasing to the eye. But if we follow the Fibonacci sequence, which is a mathematical sequence of numbers, and it's often used in contemporary floral design, then that allows you to arrange flowers in singles and pairs. So instead of fully spreading out my 3 blooms, I'm going to put them in groups, and those groups are going to comprise of 1 flower or 2 flowers. And in traditional posy, we would radiate our stems out from that focal point, like spokes of a wheel or the rays of a sun. But with a style, you tend to arrange with the flowers facing towards the ceiling. So this is often a really good design to do with offcuts of flowers or short stem flowers, or if you've had flowers in a vase and you've admired them for a week or 2 and then you want to recreate them into a different design, then you can cut them down quite short. So I'm going to follow the round shape of my container. This is another good way of repeating shapes. So if we think of rhythm and repetition, my bowl is circular and I'm repeating that shape by using round flower heads. So what I'm now going to do, rather than spread out the 3 big chrysanthemum blooms very traditionally and equally spaced out in my round container, I'm going to group 2 together and leave 1 on its own. We're going to bring them really close together. We have that blocking and grouping effect of the flowers. They're sitting really low down on the foam, so we don't have any gaps around the edge or gaps in between the flowers, but we're creating almost like a tapestry, an asymmetrical tapestry, so like a carpet of flowers. And then I'm going to do the same with the big I keep calling them chrysanthemums, and they're not chrysanthemums, they're gerberas. So these fabulous big gerberas. And another benefit of this style of arranging, which is low down and close to the foam, is that the flowers last a really long length of time because there isn't that long distance for the water to travel up the stem. So I'm going to pop 1 of my gerbera in that gap there, and I don't then have to fill in with any foliage because there's no areas left for me to fill in. So that close, compact work, and then we're going to use 2 in a cluster on the opposite sort of side of my bowl. That's going to have to become a little shorter. Don't want to lose the circular shape of my container, so I'm not going too wide. But it's a really interesting design to do. It looks great if you're looking at it from above. And what I've done is, rather than putting them all on a perfectly flat plane, we look at it from the side, I've raised this gerbera up slightly so we get some interesting levels, and that helps in this style of arrangement to create some depth. Rather than that design becoming really flat, I've got a little bit of interest and some up and down movement. I'm going to move this one over slightly because it's a bit close to the group that I've put on that side there. And this is a style that's really good for round flower heads. So if you can't get a mixed selection like I've got, just a simple bunch of chrysanthemums from the supermarket or your florist shop would be fantastic in this design. But you don't need any flowers that have tall spikes. So avoid larkspur, stocks, veronica, anything that's got that tall spike flower. We're doing that round facing, very neat effect. Sunflowers will be available soon and they would work really well in this design. So my little rose, this gorgeous coloured rose, I'm going to pop towards the centre, but not right in the middle of the design, because I don't want it to look like that cherry on the top of the icing. As you can see, let me just spread that one out, how that design is coming together. Nice and bright and cheerful, and a really good way of using those round heads of flowers. Now my lily still isn't showing any colour. We looked at this before, and that's going to open quite well. So I'm going to sit that towards the middle, but leaving enough space around it so that it opens up. I don't want to squash it down low, so I've risen it, given it a bit of space of its own, so when it does open, it's going to be a really gorgeous bloom. Now my next two flowers are the Hypericum berries. I'm going to remove the foliage because this is going to detract away from that style that I'm trying to create. And this one is going to come over to one side, and I'm going to try and balance off the reddish tone. I've only got 3 flowers that's got this darker colour, so I'm not going to group them both here. I'm going to bring one around to the opposite side, so we are slightly spreading out the colours. And what you need to think of, it's a little bit like a jigsaw, is to look at the flowers that you've got and think about how they can be moved around and placed in the design so that we're fairly equally distributing that colour. It reminds me very much of Indian colours, you know, the Indian festivals, gorgeous terracottas, oranges, beautiful, beautiful colours. Now I'm not going to use the foliage that came in the bunch, but I am going to now fill in the gaps with a couple of stems of the Gypsophila. If you can't get hold of Gypsophila, and this was also from the supermarket, if you can't get hold of Gypsophila, then you could buy yourself a bunch of chrysanthemums. Again, those round heads would work really well in the design. And I'm going to cluster it together. What I don't want to do is to spread out the Gypsophila so it almost acts like a cloud on top of the flower arrangement. And I quite often mention this cloud effect. I'm keeping it grouped together so that I don't lose those characteristic shapes and textures and flowers of this type of design. I'm going to slightly move my yellow chrysanthemum towards the edge a bit because you can slightly see my foam. But the gyp there is working really well. Beautiful colour, interesting texture, and quite a simple design for you to do at home. So if you're part of my Facebook group, so we've got this private Facebook group called Sharon's Innovations Group. You have to join so that I know you're a genuine person and you're not a robot. And I have had many scammers try to join the group. It's only a small group at the moment, but I'm hoping it's going to keep expanding and more of you will join. But on that group, you can share photographs of designs that you've done yourself. And, you know, if this inspires you and you feel like popping out and buying a bunch of flowers like this, you can share photos with me on my private Facebook group. So if you're going to replicate this design, remember not to have your floral foam too high in the container. You need your flowers to be able to sit on the rim of the container. And it doesn't matter if it's a bit deeper than the one I'm using here today. I often do this with my beginners group of flower arrangers, and they use a lasagna dish or a pie dish or a low down casserole dish, and it works really well with supermarket flowers. You could, if you wanted to, if you had all of the same type of foliage, you could add a frill or an edge in around the design. But I think for a quick arrangement, probably one of my fastest I've ever done, that makes a really nice design. So what do you think? Let me know in the comment box below. Share your photos with me if you want to join me on my private Facebook group. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that bell to be notified every time I upload a new tutorial. And please have a chat with me in the comment box below. I love to hear where you're from, what you'd like to see, and what designs you particularly enjoy. So thanks for watching.